Have you ever met someone who seems to navigate the world entirely on their own? The person who eats lunch alone, spends weekends in solitude, and never seems to have a +1 for anything. We often see these individuals through a lens of pity or suspicion, wondering what's wrong with them. Why don't they have any friends? The truth is, the psychology behind having no friends is far more complex and nuanced than a simple social failing. It's a deeply human story, a tapestry woven with threads of personal history, conscious choice, and the intricate workings of the mind. Let's explore the human side of this experience, moving beyond the surface-level judgments to understand the real reasons someone might find themselves friendless. For many, the roots of adult loneliness are planted in childhood. Think of a young boy. Let's call him Alex. Alex was a quiet, sensitive kid who preferred reading books in the library to the loud chaos of the playground. He wasn't actively disliked, but he was overlooked. His peers, busy forming boisterous groups based on shared interests in sports or video games, simply didn't notice the boy in the corner. This early experience of being socially invisible taught him a powerful, albeit painful lesson. Trying to fit in was exhausting and often fruitless. He learned to find comfort and stimulation within his own mind. For Alex, solitude wasn't a punishment, it became a sanctuary. As he grew into a teenager and then an adult, this pattern solidified. He never developed the foundational social skills that many of us take for granted. The effortless small talk, the give and take of group conversation, the vulnerability required to turn an acquaintance into a friend. His lack of friends isn't a sign of a character flaw. It's a direct consequence of a developmental path that prioritized self-reliance over social integration. He's not antisocial, he's simply asocial, meaning he doesn't feel a pressing need for social interaction in the same way others do. Then there are those for whom the lack of friends is not a passive drift, but an active, protective choice born from past hurts. Imagine a woman named Sarah, who in her college years had a vibrant, close-knit group of friends. They were her world. But a painful betrayal, perhaps a friend spreading a deeply personal secret, or the entire group siding against her in a misunderstanding, shattered her trust. The emotional fallout was devastating, leaving a scar that never fully faded. This experience created a deep-seated belief that getting close to people inevitably leads to pain. Now, years later, Sarah is polite and friendly to her colleagues. She'll engage in pleasantries at the office coffee machine, but she maintains a carefully constructed wall around her heart. When a coworker invites her out for drinks, her mind immediately flashes back to the sting of betrayal. Her internal monologue is a self-preservation script. If I don't let them in, they can't hurt me. This isn't about arrogance or being too good for others. It's a defense mechanism, a psychological suit of armor she wears to protect herself from repeating a past trauma. For people like Sarah, the perceived safety of solitude outweighs the potential rewards and risks of friendship. Beyond past trauma and developmental history, certain personality traits can make forming and maintaining friendships particularly challenging. Highly introverted individuals, for example, have a limited social battery. While an extrovert might feel energized by a party, an introvert feels drained. After a long week of mandatory social interaction at work, the last thing they want is to spend their weekend making more small talk. Their ideal evening is one of quiet rejuvenation, a good book, a movie, a personal project. It's not that they dislike people, it's that social interaction is metabolically expensive for them. They may desire one or two deep, meaningful connections, but the process of sifting through dozens of superficial acquaintances to find them feels overwhelming and, frankly, not worth the energy expenditure. Similarly, individuals high in a trait known as disagreeableness can struggle. This doesn't mean they're constantly arguing, but they may be more direct, more skeptical, and less concerned with social harmony than the average person. Think of the engineer who, in a casual conversation, can't help but point out the logical fallacies in someone's political rant. He isn't trying to be a jerk. His brain is simply wired to prioritize logic and accuracy over social niceties. While he might see his contribution as helpful and honest, others may perceive him as confrontational or arrogant. Over time, these minor social frictions accumulate, leading others to keep their distance and reinforcing his own belief that most people are illogical and not worth engaging with. He ends up friendless not because he's a bad person, but because his natural way of interacting with the world is at odds with the unspoken rules of social cohesion. We also cannot ignore the profound impact of social anxiety. This is more than just shyness. It's a powerful, often paralyzing fear of being judged, scrutinized, and negatively evaluated by others. For someone with social anxiety, a simple invitation to a birthday party can trigger a cascade of anxious thoughts. What will I wear? Who will I talk to? What if I say something stupid? Everyone will think I'm a loser. The physical symptoms, a racing heart, sweaty palms, a churning stomach, can be so intense that avoiding the social situation altogether feels like the only way to find relief. This avoidance creates a vicious cycle. By avoiding social events, they never get the chance to have positive experiences that could disprove their fears. Their world shrinks, and the isolation reinforces their belief that they are socially inept, making the next invitation even more terrifying. They desperately want to connect, but the fear acts as an invisible cage, keeping them isolated. Furthermore, some individuals consciously choose a life with few or no friends because their focus is intensely directed elsewhere. Consider an artist, a scientist, or an entrepreneur who is completely consumed by their passion. Their work is not just a job, it's their life's purpose. Every waking hour is dedicated to honing their craft, solving a complex problem, or building their business. People like this often operate on a different plane of existence. They find fulfillment, meaning, and a sense of connection through their work. Socializing can feel like a distraction, a frivolous use of time that could be better spent in the studio, the lab, or the office. This isn't a sad story of loneliness. It's a story of profound dedication. They have a friend in their work. Their dialogue is with their canvas, their code, or their business plan. While this path might seem lonely to an outsider, for them, it's a life rich with purpose and a different kind of fulfillment. Finally, it's crucial to recognize that in our modern, transient world, logistical and societal factors play a huge role. People move for jobs, relationships end, and life stages diverge. Think about how many friendships from high school or college naturally fade away. Someone who moves to a new city for a job in their late 30s faces a very different social landscape than a 20-year-old on a college campus. Adult life is structured around work and family, with few built-in mechanisms for meeting new people. Making friends as an adult requires proactive effort, joining clubs, taking classes, using apps, which can feel daunting and artificial. For someone who is already introverted or has a demanding job, the energy required to build a new social circle from scratch can seem insurmountable. They may not be friendless by some deep psychological design, but by the simple, mundane friction of adult life. Understanding the psychology of people with no friends is about replacing judgment with empathy. It's about seeing the quiet boy who learned to love his own company, the woman protecting her heart from another break, the introvert preserving their precious energy, the anxious person trapped by their fear, and the passionate creator dedicated to their craft. There isn't one single story. There are millions of individual human stories. And by looking closer, we realize that a life without friends is not necessarily a life without meaning, connection, or richness. It's simply a different way of being human.